Good evening, America. You are listening to Remember the Fallen Show with Sergeant Dave on KLRNradio.com. After having survived a rollover accident avoiding a landmine in a troop transport vehicle, military acronym LMTV, in the Parwan province in Afghanistan in 2004, I emerged and returned to the United States with an even more compelling tale of perseverance as I navigate the rapids of the troubled VA system. I gain new perspective with the fever of enthusiasm to all patriots across the windswept fields of America. Here we are live at the Remember the Fallen YouTube studio in beautiful Seminole County, USA, on the Winter Springs Oviedo line, where we'll be talking about jarheads, Marines, squids, Navy, Air Force, penguins. Yeah, we call them penguins because 98% of them don't fly. And then you have Coast Guard. We call them puddle pilots. You see, one of us can be disregarded. Two of us can be ignored. But a podcast is a movement. Tonight's podcast, we're going to talk about the word grit. What it really means is many facets of it. The word has several definitions. It can mean a tiny piece of dirt or rock, as in the wind filled my ears and nose with grit. Some people use it to describe a redneck. The grit has never left the farm. By the way, lest you think my use of redneck insulting or gratuitous, I grew up with them and several times in my life. A good old boy has hauled me out of a sea of troubles, right? Some employ grit to mean nasty or gross, as in Joe is so grit. None of those definitions apply here. No, grit, for my purpose, refers to anyone with spunk, courage, determination, and willpower to see a task or obligation through to the end. Grit is a word I love. The way it sounds matches in meaning a flinty-eyed, intrepid, single syllable. Grit also is a character trait I much admire in others. When I think of grit, the first people who come to my mind are some members of our armed forces. The Navy SEALs, hoorah! The Green Berets, hoorah! The Army Rangers, hoorah! The Air Force Special Operations Force, hoorah! Those who undergo Navy SEAL training, for example, nearly all credit not their physical strength for enduring that ordeal, but their absolute refusal to give up and seek an easier birth. They dig down and find within themselves reserves of willpower missing in their comrades who quit the training. After leaving the military, several of these SEALs have written books or made podcasts designed to inspire others to hold fast under tremendous pressure. Now, what I'm looking at the word grit on this show is the protesters in Hong Kong display a different kind of grit. They have taken to the streets to battle for liberty. They understand what is coming down the pike. They see the future the Chinese Communist Party, which is CCP, intends for them. And so they wave American flags, sing our national anthem, and vow in the face of all odds to stand up for freedom. Can you imagine being in a communist country and you're holding an American flag and singing our national anthem? That is amazing fortitude for our liberty, and they are risking not only their lives if they get caught on camera, but their families' lives. Their whole family could be put into a prison camp if they were caught singing the national anthem out in the streets, and of course, raising a flag, American flag. So of course, some are arrested, some are beaten, and all, we may be sure, will be written down as enemies of the state. But they keep on fighting. It's amazing. They will not give up. And that's why our president will not give up on the humanitarian effort that China needs to change their ways. So it's not only intellectual property that China is stealing from America, but it's their humanitarian, no respect for life whatsoever. When the Falun Gong spiritual movement came over in China in CCP, 70 million people latched onto it. It's just something that it was something better than they could ever see, and they risked their own lives to practice it. But now the China police, the force, can actually arrest them and put them in prison camps. And the worst of it all, they're harvesting their organs. Yes, it's happening in this world today. I could imagine happening over 100 years ago, but no. They are imprisoning these. All they're doing is following a type of religion, it's just a meditation, really. Very similar to yoga. You could do yoga in America. You don't get arrested for that. And so what's happening is, all of a sudden they'll disappear. They won't see them. And then they're gone. And then they're in a prison camp. And they go to see their parents, if they're parents or kids. And they were perfectly healthy when they went in. And then 2 months later, oh, he died of a heart attack. And they go, what? He was so healthy when he went in. So we got to look into this more for the humanitarian effort. And not only that, China just wants to take over the world. That's it. The Communist Party wants world global domination. That's what they're up to. So even some of our presidents have grit. Whatever we may think of him, Donald Trump, right? A lot of us have a lot of opinions on Donald right now. Is one of them. Not since Abraham Lincoln has a sitting president suffered such a deluge of personal attacks, assailed daily by his political opponents, even by Hollywood stars and by the mainstream media, right? Fake news. But now he's calling it corrupt news. I kind of like that new spin, if you may say. And he's just smeared with labels like racist, misogynist, and anti-Semite. President Trump keeps pushing his agenda and battling back. So he has grit. Yeah, he has grit, definitely. Like Gene Tooney and Muhammad Ali, two of boxing's great counterpunchers. Trump manages again and again to slip an opponent's punch, exploit the opening, and unleash a barrage of his own. Tweet. Yeah, I heard he did 36 tweets the other day before 9 o'clock. That's a little too much, Donald. All right, pull back on the tweets, will you? So given a similar pounding, most of us would have long ago caved. With this type of deluge coming at you, right? You would have given up, right? No, he's still going to go for 2020. And can't forget about some of the other grits part of the staff prior to, well, I think she came out during his thing. I like this lady a lot, Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, a former governor of South Carolina, also showed courage and stamina in her office as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. She accused that body of ganging up on Israel, repeatedly opposed Iranian aggression and policy in the Middle East, and took positions unpopular with other member nations. Grit, she's got it. Another one that's got it. Most of us have friends and family members who process this trait. I know of a Vietnam veteran who spent 2 years in Vietnam. He had grit. He was stuck in monsoons where his head was pounding for 4 days. That's how much hard rain was coming down. He was struck down in an area where they had no food, and he had to survive off rats and cockroaches to survive. Now that is grit. A lot of our military forces have grit. And that's why where we are today, because of the grit. Never, pride, determination, courage to never give up. And there's an article of an elderly man in Cambodian, a Cambodian physician. Here's a guy educated, whom the Khmer Rouge hauled out of his hospital, imprisoned him along with millions of others. Here is a doctor that can save lives, and the Khmer Rouge hauled him out of a hospital, imprisoned him along with all these other Cambodians, right? And forced him to work like a slave in the fields. Not realizing that his talents, right? He could help. One day he had enough. Walked into the jungle and eventually made it to the West. So he survived. That's grit. He did not give up. And that's what we got to have. And now we got to have grit for our president. We have to stand up for our president now. Okay? At the end of the bridges of another story, at the end of the bridges of Tokoi Rai, a war movie based on James Macherno's novel by the same title, Rear Admiral Tarrant watches his pilots fly from the deck of a carrier and remarks, "Where do we get such men? They leave the ship and they do their job. Then they must find the speck lost on the sea. When they find it, they have to land on its pitching deck. Where do we get such men? That's amazing. The grit to fly in the darkness and come back and land on a ship, on a little speck. That's amazing. Dedication and courage, right? How'd they come by it? What factors drive them to overcome so many obstacles? Pride inspires the SEALs and their comrades in arms and other military service to complete their training. My training wasn't as tough as Navy SEALs, but it was difficult. Sure, there was moments where you just want to give up, but you stay in there. You drive on. Your pride and your courage to never give up. It's like you never quit. As ethos, I am an American soldier. I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. That's etched in a lot of our military services brain, like it is mine. It's just our love of liberty stifles the spines of the Hong Kong protests. I'm going back to Hong Kong because it's amazing what these young kids are actually doing. You know, they could be out, it's like the typical millenniums now, be on their phone and not caring. But no, they're risking their lives out in these protests and holding our American flag. I still think that's amazing. And singing National Anthem and literally could be shot on sight. You know, so I refuse to be intimidated. Surely accounts for the bold stands of Donald Trump and Nikki Haley, and especially children who need special care, food, and clothing. Pull a young attorney from his bed every morning. Desperation and hope guided the doctor who walked away from the killing fields. Religious faith gave strength to my mother. In other words, grit is the offspring of many parents. But whatever its source, when we counter that special blend of courage, willpower, and resolution, we stand in awe of its undaunted valor. Actor John Wayne, famed for his westerns including True Grit, once said, "Life is getting up one more time than you've been knocked down." I think that's a good definition of grit as any. I would like to thank the Epoch Times on that article on True Grit. They really got some really insight that I've never seen before in today's newspapers, so I would like you to look that up. EPOCH Times. Okay, they have another article here. They really have their sniper hairs on China on this monthly magazine. Actually, it's out. It comes out weekly. It's a weekly newspaper, and they're really coming hard on how the specter of communism is ruling our world, using the law for evil. They don't hold any punches, this Epoch Times. So I'm going to go over some of these articles to share with you what's going on the other side of the world and why that Trump is holding back on funding or anything because the humanitarian efforts are just not looked at all. So while communism ignores all sense of legality to practice state terrorism in pursuit of its domestic goals, it puts on a show in front of Western countries like us by claiming it's committed to implementing the rule of law. It does this so it can engage, infiltrate, and subvert free societies in the name of trade and economic partnership, cultural exchange, and geopolitical cooperation. Well, that's what they did to Hillary. Okay, they became her buddy. She gave them bunch of computers, and now look what they're doing, right? They're hacking us. They're finding ways to infiltrate our system. They're not going to stop, folks. Yes, the only way we're going to stop them is stop buying Chinese goods. I know it's difficult. I've been there. I'm at Walmart. I do it too. But if we could just come together and stop buying so many Chinese products and compare, let's at least look at the Vietnamese project, all right? They're coming up and growing. We created their free society, so let's try to buy more Vietnamese, okay? Maybe some Latin countries, Brazil, and not buy everything that's coming from China, okay? Because they are not a free society. And for instance, at the onset of reform and opening in 1979, the CCP, which is the Communist Control Party, right, passed a criminal procedure law ostensibly to strengthen the judiciary institution, but this law has not been seriously enforced. No. It is a paper tiger law, you know. According to Marx, the law is a product of class contradiction and a tool that embodies the will of the ruling class. The laws of a communist party come neither from God nor from a genuine love for the people or for the sake of maintaining a fair and just society. The interests of the ruling group, that is the Communist Party, are all that matter. As the goals and interests of the party change, the laws change as well. Naturally, once the CCP seized power, its adopted class struggle as the guideline and proceeded to rob the entire citizenry. It promulgated laws against the crime of counter-revolution activity, which applied to everyone who opposed the party's policy of theft. The CCP punished counter-revolutionaries with prison or shooting on sight. After completing the process of mass robbery to implement its public ownership, the CCP needed a way to keep what it had stolen. It shifted its priorities to making economic construction the focus and implemented laws that protected private property. In a sense, this meant that little more than protecting the party's vested interests, as property belonging to ordinary Chinese is not. In practice, it afforded the same protections. The endless compulsory demolition of people's homes to make way for land development illustrates the regime's continued application of violence to infringe on the right to private property. Remember back in early 1999, the Communist Party announced the need to rule the country according to law. A few months later, it began the nationwide persecution of Falun Gong practitioners who follow the principles of, get this, truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. The party established the Gestapo-like 610 office to carry out the anti-Falun Gong campaign. To fulfill its mission, the 610 office is what they called it, has the authority to bypass all laws and judicial procedures. That's the martial law in effect, okay? It manipulates the public security and judicial bureaucracy to suppress Falun Gong. The party must continuously conjure new enemies so as to intimidate the people, cover up monstrosity crimes like harvesting organs, right? Putting Falun Gong practitioners into prison, healthy as can be, and 2 months later they say they have a heart attack and die. Then the family goes to visit them, and then they go try to get the autopsy results, and they couldn't, so they went to go see him, and one of the daughters of the Falun Gong practitioner went to just lift his shirt to see what happened, and police came in and threw her out of there. Well, a week later, one of the brother-in-laws came in, and somebody distracted the guards, and he was able to pull down the shirt, and look what happened. They had a cut through him from his throat all the way down the bottom of his abdomen. His organs were taken out, and they were put in place with crushed ice, so it looked like there was still an organ in his body. This is what's going on, people. We got to wake up to what China is doing over there and stop buying their product. That's the only way we're going to keep them out of global domination. It's going to be difficult. We still have a long journey with them as well. So just keep this party is just ruthless. The party, what it does, it's the modes and targets of persecution are ever changing, including the campaigns against landlords and capitalists. You can't forget what happened in 1989, right? The massacre of students in Tiananmen Square and the suppression of Falun Gong practitioners and human rights lawyers. Accordingly, the law must change as well. In over 60 years of rule, the party has promulgated 4 constitutions, the last of which has undergone 4 revisions since its introduction in 1982, gaining experience from multiple political campaigns. The CCP has used the law to adjust and disguise its motives and actions. Sometimes it does not even bother to apply this camouflage. Communist Party officially neglect the law. That's it. There's no law over there. It's what they want to do. The CCP has filed its constitution with verbose language in an effort to show that it is committed to rule of law and civilized international norms. In practice, however, the Constitution is never strictly followed, and rights such as freedom of speech, belief, and association are not actually protected. According to Marxist theory, law reflects the will of the ruling class and is an instrument in its governance. For a Communist Party, then passing and amending laws to suppress its enemies follows as a matter of course. Under this kind of system, anyone who dares to challenge The will of the ruling class, that is anyone who opposes the interests of the Communist Party, can be subject to legal persecutions as a class enemy, whether they are unemployed workers, demobilized soldiers, farmers whose land was expropriated, human rights lawyers, or simply those struggling to make ends meet. To lawyers practicing in communist countries, the laws on the books always make way for practical concerns. If a lawyer tries to cite the law and argue in favor of the justice, the judge and prosecution will shut him down by talking about the supposed spirit of the law. They even blatantly say that the court is run by the Communist Party and must follow its orders. Whatever the thoughts of these individual court workers, what they say indeed reflects the spirit of the law that exists under communist regimes. In the Chinese court system, during the hearings involving Falun Gong practitioners persecuted in China, the judges may say these kinds of things. Why are you bringing up the law? I care only about politics. The party doesn't allow defense. The leader's words are the law. The Communist Party leads the court, so we need to follow the party line. No legal procedure is necessary for the Falun Gong issues. Don't talk to me about conscience. Yeah, I mean, can you believe this? So, English philosopher Francis Bacon once wrote, "One foul sentence doth more hurt than many foul examples, for these do but corrupt the stream that corrupteth the fountain." The laws of the Communist Party, ever malleable and only selectively practiced, hold no sanctity from which to derive legitimate authority. Over the past century, the spirit of law that governs the party's legal system has brought about countless injustices and overseen the deaths of 100 million innocent people. Do you hear that? 100 million. Oh my goodness. A debt of blood that no representative of the communist cause can ever atone for. A murderer must pay with his life, just as a debtor with money, as the common proverb goes. With a Communist Party to truly enforce the law, it would become liable for its bloody history. Okay, so how communism warps laws in the West, okay? Its communist countries, the devil manipulates the law as an instrument for maintaining its rule, reinforcing its ideology, and suppressing the people. In free countries, it's aimed to subvert traditional faith and the law's moral foundations, to distort the standards of good and evil, seize the powers of legislation and enforcement, thus putting demonic norms into practice. Law is closely related to politics, religion, education, and other fields. The United States has been long in the mainstay of rule of law, but today, as communism extends and is reached to every corner of the world, do you hear that? That's why we're concerned of what's going to be happening to Venezuela. All right, Cuba's pretty close to Venezuela. I can imagine that we got Chinese of the CCP over there trying to work with their system. Okay, so subverting the moral foundations of the law based on religion and faith is sacred. But as communist parties and their various followers around the world promoted atheism and their theory of evolution, the connection between the law and God has been severed. Law has been largely reduced to an instrument of revenge, arbitration, bargaining, and allocation of benefits. With its divine nature under siege, the spirit of the law began to shift from its role of maintaining fairness and justice to being the expression of popular notions and desires. This opened the door for the communist specter through its mortal agents to pass laws of its choosing in order to undermine society and come closer to its destructive aims. In the United States, the communist influence in social justice and modern liberalism have appropriated for the concepts of freedom, progress, and tolerance to alter the moral state of society and with it the moral foundation of the law. Using these causes to reject and destroy the laws of morale and religious underpinnings affect what kind of laws can be passed and how they will be interpreted by the judges. Marriage, for example, is considered by traditional faiths to be a holy institution comprising the union of man and wife. Same-sex marriage, by definition, violates these teachings in its introduction to society, necessitates a shift in the legal definition interpretation of the laws governing marriage. On the other hand, if the people abide by divine commandment and uphold the standards set by their faith, The moral state of society will not change, and secular law will remain stable, as it is based on the principles ordained by gods. If gods held a certain kind of behavior to be immoral 2,000 years ago, it should be immoral today as well. I agree. Liberalism, however, rejects traditional belief in moral judgment. It regards morality as a secular agreement that changes according to the development of society. Marriage, therefore, is regarded as a simple contract between two people who are willing to state their commitment to each other. Recognizing of same-sex marriage is based on the ostensible premise of freedom and progress, but this premise is malleable and will inevitably result in the corruption of the law. Liberalism and progressivism have brought about the separation of the traditional morality from justice. This was reflected in an abortion case that reached the Supreme Court in 1992. Three justices stated, "Some of us individuals find abortion offensive to our most basic principles of morality, but that cannot control our decision. Our obligation is to define the liberty of all, not to mandate our own moral code." Put another way, what the justice meant is that the law prioritized freedom over morality, and the values of liberty and morality are separate. But liberty, as established by the American founding fathers, is a self-evident principle, that is, it is bestowed by God, or as the Declaration of Independence puts it, the Creator. Rejecting the universal standards set by the Creator in order to increase the range of so-called freedom is a method the devil uses to distort the law and lead humanity to its fall. What a great article in the Epoch Times. You've got to read this. This is on the opinion page on 8/21. I appreciate the Epoch Times giving me the time to use their piece of material here for the podcast. And I take my hat off to all these Hong Kong protesters who have true grit.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign. Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com. For J.D. Power more information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030. Hi, welcome to the Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it? I'll take a sports announcer at home. Yeah? How'd you? We just know.
My wife picks up the new signature wrap. It's got double the rotisserie style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite. Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my Subway. Make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
Here is my handle and here is my spout. This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council. KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Well, it's getting 0:30 for the show, and I'm just about ready to go into rack ops mode. Never! But before I do that, one last promo. So go to sgtdavematthews@gmail.com. That's Sergeant Dave Matthews at gmail.com for any suggestions for the show. Or if you know anybody who would like to come on to the show, we'd love to have them. You can always go to my Facebook page. Remember the Fallen, all one word. Please like that page as well. And you can go to the website, neverforgottenmemorials.org. Once again, neverforgottenmemorials.org. You see what I've been doing for the last 4 years. I build fallen soldier memorials across the country. I need your help for the next one. Be looking for I'm going to get a hold of George W. Bush, I hope, on this one. The Medal of Honor recipient museum being opened up in Arlington, Texas, because there's 70 MOH, Medal of Honor recipients out of the Arlington, Texas area. We have some great patriots in Texas. They have true grit. Medal of Honor recipients are true grit. Okay, so once again, catch me on my Twitter page at Heroic Memorials, and looking out for all our troops, and all our troops come home safe. God bless America.